Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. In our last show, we talked about several important war preparation moves from the CCP. As a matter of fact, something equally major is also happening with the CCP's internal political system. That is, Xi Jinping is going to set up a Soviet-style organization called the Central Committee of Internal Affairs. In the former Soviet Union, it was called People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, or NKVD. What exactly is Xi Jinping's plan? Why did he want to do it? And what will be the consequences? Today, let's discuss this. A while ago, a Hong Kong newspaper called Minpao reported that Xi Jinping plans to establish a so-called Central Committee of Internal Affairs that will incorporate the Ministry of Public Security and the Ministry of State Security that are currently under the State Council to create a super police agency. This new Central Committee of Internal Affairs will be under the CCP's direct leadership. So this means the Ministry of Public Security and the Ministry of State Security will be removed from the State Council system and become a party apparatus. This Central Committee of Internal Affairs will integrate the functions of public security, immigration, household registration, transportation, counterterrorism, counter-espionage, and even social organization management functions of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. China observers suggest that once this Central Committee of Internal Affairs is established, it will become the Chinese version of the KGB. You know, the Soviet Union's People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, or NKVD, was originally tasked with conducting regular police work and overseeing the country's prisons and labor camps. Later, under Joseph Stalin, its role was to conduct political repression and carry out the Great Purge. It undertook mass extrajudicial executions of citizens and conceived, populated, and administered the Gulag system of forced labor camps. Well, the CCP's Central Committee of Internal Affairs draws on both the name of the Ministry of Internal Affairs at the beginning of the CCP's regime and the functional framework of the Soviet Union's NKVD. 2 days ago, on February 28th, the CCP finished its second plenary session of the 20th Central Committee, and Xi Jinping, as usual, gave an important speech. The official communique says the plenary session adopted a plan for the reform of party and state institutions. She delivered explanatory remarks on the draft plan of the session. The session agreed to put part of the reform plan to the first session of the 14th National People's Congress for deliberation in accordance with due legal procedures. Although no details of the reforms were revealed, it indeed confirms that there will be a reform. What is particularly noteworthy is that many of the words and the statements in the communique show that the CCP's deep concern about the current international and domestic environment in which they find themselves, as if they were already aware that their time is running out and a great disaster is looming. Why do I say this? Let's look at the original text of Xinhua's report about the communique. Quote, at present, the world is undergoing momentous and rapid changes unseen in a century, and it has entered a new phase of turbulence and transformation, the session said. It noted that China has entered a development period in which strategic opportunities, risks, and challenges are current, and uncertainties and unforeseen factors are rising, and it must therefore be ready to withstand high winds, choppy waters, and even dangerous storms. At home, China faces many deep-seated problems regarding reform, development, and stability, with the triple pressures of shrinking demand, disrupted supply, and weakening expectations remaining relatively high, the session underscored, adding that the foundation for economic recovery needs to be further consolidated and unexpected circumstances may occur anytime. The plenary session urged all party members to remain confident and strategically clear-headed and carry forward the fighting spirit to strive to achieve the goals and tasks for the year. More efforts should be made to expand domestic demand, guaranteeing and improve the well-being of the people and advance rural revitalization across the board, the session stressed. Unquote. Actually, this official English translation has already toned down what is expressed by the Chinese text. If you read the Chinese version, the sense of crisis and fear for doomsday is way much more obvious. Before this, what the CCP and Xi Jinping had always been stressing again and again is its confidence doctrine. We must be confident in our chosen path, confident in our guiding theories, confident in our political system, and confident in our culture. So this is called 四个自信 in Chinese, which can be translated as 4 matters of confidence or confidence in 4 aspects. From this, we can see that Xi Jinping's so-called reform was done out of desperate sense of self-rescue and self-protection. Now let's go back to more details about the reforms. According to Hong Kong media 明报, the current Public Security Minister Wang Xiaohong will be the head of the Central Committee of Internal Affairs, as Wang Xiaohong is in Xi Jinping's trusted circle, which means she will be the one who actually controls the Central Committee of Internal Affairs, and this will enable him to purge those who oppose him more easily. So this is the first reason why Xi would do this. In the past 10 years, Xi Jinping's Great Purge was justified by anti-corruption efforts. However, he couldn't blame everyone who is not loyal to him for corruption. But under the banner of organizational reforms, it is much easier and natural to replace virtually everyone in the system. In order to achieve this purpose, last year, the CCP already issued a document asking its officials to be prepared for any promotion or demotion. The second reason for the reform is to replace the administration system with the party system. Although China is a one-party state, in theory and in reality, it has 2 systems, the party system and the administration system. Only how much power each system has will vary in different periods. For example, after Mao's time, there was a period when the CCP talked about the separation of the party and the government, and within the party system, they talk about collective leadership. During Hu Jintao's time, there were altogether 9 members in the standing committee of the Politburo, and each of them had his own power base. When Xi Jinping became the CCP head, he adopted the so-called dual leadership system. People call it the Xi-Li system, naming Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang were both in charge. One was responsible for the party affairs, one was responsible for the day-to-day management of the country. But now, since Xi has gained an unprecedented third term, in the future, Xi will be the only one who is in charge. The third reason for the reform is to further strengthen centralization and take power from local governments. This is likely to be reflected in the plans for reforming local party and government institutions. The fourth reason is probably to reduce redundant personnel. Last year, 6 small counties in Shanxi province were selected for institutional reform pilot programs, with each county reducing its party and government officials by about 1,000. With fewer people, the power of local governments may decrease, and the financial pressure may also be reduced. If we look at Xi Jinping's current situation, we will find it is very similar to that of Stalin before the Great Purge was launched. Why would Stalin launch the Great Purge? Basically, there were two reasons. One was that Stalin's collectivization economic policy, as well as his first 5-year plan, had met with failure, and this led to dissatisfaction and questioning within the party. In terms of the external environment, Europe was in turmoil at the time. World War II was about to break out. Another reason was the assassination of Stalin's confidant Sergei Kirov. Because of this assassination, Stalin became aware of anti-Stalin forces. As a result, he made the decision to launch a movement that later became the world-famous Great Purge. Xi Jinping's current situation is quite similar to Stalin's. Xi's 3-year zero-COVID control has significantly damaged China's economy, and its personal authority has also encountered great challenges. In terms of the international environment, tensions with other countries, tension in the Taiwan Strait have all reached an unprecedented level. Inside the party, Xi Jinping's political enemies have made quite a few assassination attempts too. We talked about one of the attempts in September 2021. If you are interested, please go back and watch that show. So under these kind of circumstances, it is not surprising that Xi Jinping would want to follow Stalin's footsteps and implement high-pressure rule. As a matter of fact, if he does plan to take over Taiwan, he needs absolute power and control inside China too. So some people are saying that although Li Qiang, as Xi Jinping's confidant, was exceptionally promoted and is about to become the new premier of China, who will also be the least powerful premier in the history of the CCP, because after this round of institutional reforms, many agencies under the State Council will be incorporated into the CCP's party system and directly under the control of Xi Jinping. Apart from the public security and state security system, the financial system and science and technology sector can also be managed by the party directly after this round of reform, as the communique of the second plenary session also mentioned the need to deepen institutional reform in key areas such as finance, security, science, and technology. The news that Xi Jinping wants to set up a Soviet-style Central Committee of Internal Affairs sent big shockwaves through the Chinese communities both inside and outside of China. For the CCP, it is certainly a painful process to perform such major surgery on itself. A large number of organizations will be abolished. Official positions will be redistributed. Some people will lose their jobs, some will be demoted, some will be forced to retire, etc. All this will cause a great shock in the official circles, dampen the loyalty and enthusiasm of high-ranking officials, and create divisions among them. In addition, middle and lower-level government employees are also facing a miserable future. Those who are transferred will need to readjust. Those whose salaries are reduced will have to suffer, and those who lose their jobs will have to look for new ones, etc. For those who entered the government for personal gain, this will be an unprecedented blow. It is highly probable that they will choose to lie flat, resist passively, and stop functioning for the CCP. Another problem is whether the new structure will really work out for Xi Jinping remains unknown. If power is taken away from local governments or officials, will Xi Jinping and the few around him have the ability to run everything smoothly? If not, what can he do then? There is no doubt that the CCP is facing its most critical situation since coming into power. If we look at the CCP's history, the 3 years of the Great Chinese Famine, the economic collapse after the Cultural Revolution, and the challenges after the 1989 Tiananmen massacre were indeed bad enough. However, those crises were not unsolvable. By letting the farmers farm by themselves, by opening up to the outside world, and by maintaining a good relationship with the US, those crises were solved one by one. But right now, all these solutions have been blocked by Xi Jinping himself. Before the CCP's 20th National Congress, many people had hoped that the healthy forces within the CCP would be able to overthrow Xi Jinping and restart political reform, but that last hope was also killed by Xi Jinping. So Xi has brought himself to today's situation. Internally, he's preparing for bloody suppression, while externally he's preparing for a world war. For Xi Jinping, this is a life or death matter, and this is a life and death situation. From the desperate tone of the communique of the second plenary session, we can see that Xi Jinping is preparing for the worst. Perhaps he already regrets bringing himself to such a situation. But what can he do? He has no choice but to continue with the same stubbornness and boldness, gritting his teeth and pushing through. Perhaps a dictator in danger is also a most dangerous threat to the world. So let's pray that the tide will work against the evil and wash the CCP out before it commits another heinous crime. Well, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my content, please help me spread my movies and get more subscribers. Please also consider going to my website at jenniferzengblog.com. That's jenniferzengblog.com. Signing up for membership or making a donation to support my truth-telling efforts. After you become a member, you can read my scripts to save time if you don't want to watch the video. I always put all the links to the sources I use in my shows so that you can do your own further research. Thank you. See you next time.